The HOA president shattered my disabled daughter's life over a few flower boxes. But what she didn't know was that I had once been a federal judge and I understood exactly how to fight back. My sweet Lily, just 5 years old, has been my entire world since the day she was born. Born with cerebral palsy, Lily has never been able to walk. She gets around in her little pink wheelchair, her bright smile lighting up even the darkest days. Her laugh, soft and sweet like the sound of wind chimes in spring, has always been the greatest joy of my life. When we moved to Oak Ridge Estates, I had no idea we'd be walking into a battle. After retiring from the federal bench to care for Lily full-time after her mother passed away from cancer, I chose this quiet neighborhood for its good schools and safe streets. I thought it would be the perfect place to give my daughter the peaceful, happy childhood she deserved. Lily loved flowers from the time she could talk. When we moved in, I built a raised flower bed for her in the backyard, perfectly designed so she could tend to her plants from her chair. It became our father-daughter ritual. Each morning, she'd wheel herself outside and carefully water her pansies, sunflowers, and butterfly bushes, her tiny hands delicately patting the soil. But peace doesn't last long when people like Karen Whitmore are around. Karen Whitmore, the HOA president of Oak Ridge Estates, was the type of woman who wore pearls with her tennis shoes and treated a clipboard like a weapon. 2 weeks after Lily planted her first batch of flowers, Karen showed up unannounced. Her lips pressed so tightly together they looked like a paper cut. "Remove those unsightly boxes," she snapped, waving her clipboard like a sword. "They break HOA aesthetic standards. You have 3 days or face fines." I stood between her and my daughter, who was clutching her watering can, tears brimming in her wide brown eyes. "My daughter is disabled. This garden helps her heal, helps her cope. It's her safe space." Karen's eyes narrowed, as cold as steel. "Disability doesn't exempt you from the rules here. If anything, you should be more considerate about how things look." I tried reason. I brought paperwork, documentation about Lily's condition, letters from her therapists about how therapeutic gardening was for her. I sent it all to the HOA office. But the woman at the desk, polite though she was, told me what I already knew. "Mrs. Whitmore never changes her mind." Lily stopped asking to go outside. She jumped every time the doorbell rang. At bedtime, as I tucked her Elsa doll under her chin, she asked me softly, "Daddy, why doesn't Mrs. Whitmore like me? Did I do something wrong?" I choked back tears. "No, baby. Some people just don't understand. But we're going to fix this. I promise." I thought the worst had passed. I thought maybe we could appeal, fight through legal channels like I'd done so many times before. But I was wrong. It was a Wednesday afternoon, a sunny spring day. I'd run to the store for groceries, grabbing milk and bread. When I pulled into the driveway, I heard the screaming. Lily screaming. I dropped the bags and sprinted through the house into the backyard. My stomach dropped. Her wheelchair was overturned. Lily lay crumpled on the ground, her little body twisted unnaturally, her neck bent at a sickening angle. Her flowers were crushed, soil and petals scattered like a battlefield around her. And there stood Karen Whitmore, measuring tape in hand, her face flushed. "What did you do?" I roared, running to my daughter, trying to keep my hands steady as I checked for breathing, for consciousness, for signs of movement. "Two didn't touch her," Karen stammered, though she looked anything but innocent. "I was just measuring the violation." She got upset, tried to block me with her wheelchair. "It must have tipped. I swear I didn't touch her." My hands shook as I dialed 911. "Stay still, baby," I whispered, brushing her hair from her damp forehead. "Help is coming." The ambulance arrived fast. The ride to the hospital felt like it lasted an eternity. When the doctor came out to speak to me, I knew from his face the news would be bad. "Mr. Brooks," he said gently, "your daughter has a cervical fracture. There's damage to her spinal cord. We've stabilized her, but even with surgery, she may not regain movement below the neck." I didn't feel the tears until they hit my hands. My baby girl, her sweet little smile. All because one heartless woman thought a garden was an eyesore. The surgery took 6 hours. I sat outside the operating room, my head in my hands, replaying every moment over and over. My training, my years on the bench, the people I'd seen wronged by the system. I never imagined my own child would suffer this way. Lily's prognosis was grim. She wouldn't walk. She wouldn't even be able to move her arms again. Neighbors came by with casseroles and cards. A few from the HOA offered awkward apologies. Karen sent flowers. She didn't dare show up in person. When I returned home briefly to gather Lily's favorite stuffed animals, I found a letter taped to the door. The HOA graciously agreed not to fine us for the garden under the circumstances. I tore the letter in half and threw it in the trash. The next morning, I made the first of 3 phone calls. First, to Marcus Reed, the sharpest civil rights attorney I knew, a pit bull in the courtroom who never backed down. Second, to Melissa Crane, a local journalist with a reputation for exposing the darkest corners of small-town corruption. Third, to my old colleague at the Department of Justice's Office of Civil Rights. I wasn't just going to fight back. I was going to make sure the world saw what had been done to my daughter. Within a week, the lawsuit was filed. $20 million for damages, medical care, and violations of the Americans with Disabilities Act. The complaint didn't just name Karen Whitmer, it named the entire HOA board. At the same time, Melissa's front-page story hit the press. HOA president's bullying leaves disabled child paralyzed. Families with disabled children came forward, sharing their own horror stories of mistreatment by Oak Ridge Estates. The Department of Justice opened an investigation. Karen tried to deny everything. She cried during depositions, claiming she'd never meant for anyone to get hurt. But the security footage from our neighbor's backyard camera told a different story, her storming onto our property without permission, shouting at my daughter, looming over her like a hawk. When she realized the world was watching, Karen resigned from the HOA. But it was too late for damage control. The lawsuit moved forward. The federal investigation continued. In the end, the HOA settled. Millions paid not only to cover Lily's lifelong care but also to establish a foundation for children with disabilities, ensuring no other family would suffer the same cruelty. Karen sold her house at a loss and left town in disgrace. The HOA rewrote its rules under federal supervision. Every board member was required to take annual training on disability rights. But money couldn't fix my little girl's neck. Couldn't give her back what was stolen from her. Justice in the courtroom was only part of the healing. 1 year later, Lily cut the ribbon at the grand opening of Lily's Garden, a massive, fully accessible community space funded by the settlement. Using a specially designed chair operated by sip and puff technology, she smiled her bright, unbreakable smile as butterflies danced around her. "This garden is for everyone," she said proudly. "No matter how you grow, you belong here." Looking at her that day, surrounded by children planting flowers together, wheelchairs, walkers, crutches, or none at alley, understood what true justice looks like. It grows like a garden, slowly, patiently, but it lasts. And no bully, no matter how powerful, can ever stop it.